Hey everybody, what's going on? This is Matt, and today I want to talk about audio resources for language learning. And I wanted to make this video because I want to help people get a head start on where they can find interesting and compelling audio content to listen to when they're learning a language. And obviously, there are more resources out there than the ones listed in this video. If you have a resource that you like, please share it in the comments section. And I think it's also just important to point out that, go out and explore, try out different resources, see what works and what is fun and interesting to you, because obviously some of these resources are going to be great for you while others maybe not so much. So, always go out and explore and experiment. And with all that being said, let's go ahead and get started. So the first resource that I wanted to talk about is audible.com. And Audible is a great place for finding really high quality audiobooks for your language learning. And Audible has just so many different audiobooks out there from so many different subject matters and a lot of really popular books out there. So if you're looking for something very specific, whether that's a particular book like Harry Potter and the language that you're learning, a book that was just released but it's available in many different languages, or you want to learn about a specific subject matter, Audible is a great place for finding those kind of very specific needs. Now, Audible is not free. It does require a monthly subscription or a one-time purchase of the audiobooks, but the quality tends to be very good in terms of the narration. Now, it can differ between each of the books, but generally speaking, I think the quality is quite a bit better than some of the free options that are out there. And in addition, you can buy an audiobook that is pretty long, tens of hours long. So it really kind of, even though the price of the audiobook might seem expensive, if you listen to the audiobook multiple times or it's a really long audiobook, you really do get your money's worth from it. And so just to give you kind of a quick example, I can search for, um, German history, for example, and here we can see a list of books on German history. So I can click on this book, for example, and listen to a sample.
Deutschland, was ist das? Dumme Frage, weiß doch wohl jeder, oder?
And so as you can see, like the quality is actually pretty good in my opinion. And what's great about Audible is that you can get the audiobook version and also the hard copy version of that book as well, or the Kindle version. And so then you have the written text and the audio format. So I think that's a really big advantage that audiobooks can kind of give you is that you can pair them with the actual book itself and kind of leverage both of those at the same time. I also do think it's good to listen to audiobooks more than once if you can, because multiple listens will help you to get better at listening, to overall improve your comprehension the second listen to the third listen. And so it doesn't just have to be this one-time use of the book. You can read these books multiple times and really get a lot of value out of your money's worth. So if you're looking for something very specific, check out Audible for some of your language learning audio needs. So the next resource that I want to talk about is Libravox, which is audiobooks free in the public domain. And so if you're kind of looking for a more free option, then Libravox might be a great place to find audiobooks or audio content for your language learning needs. And Libravox, like I said, is a good alternative to Audible in terms of audiobooks and finding content like that. So I can go over here to the language tab, and as you can see, there's a bunch of audiobooks in a bunch of different languages. So for example, I can click on German here and let it load. And let's say we want to select this book right here, and we can kind of start listening to the book right here.
1. Dezember. Dies ist eine Librivox-Aufnahme. Alle Librivox-Aufnahmen.
And so as you can see, the quality could be pretty good, though it does vary quite a bit, but that really is the same for Audible as well. So, if you're looking for kind of a more free option, I think LibriVox is a good choice. Now, you probably won't have the same selection that Audible offers you, but if you're still looking for audio content that's a little bit more free, but you're looking for books or things like that to read in kind of an audio format for your listening practice, then I think LibriVox is a good alternative. So next up, I wanted to talk about the website that you're actually on right now, and that's YouTube. And YouTube is an amazing resource for listening content when you're learning a language, and it's completely free. And there's really just so much content out there, just about something for everybody. And if you aren't using it already, I think YouTube's an amazing resource to help you practice listening. And, the range of content is really endless. You can listen to content about video games in the language that you're learning, or news or politics, or whatever it is. And I would suggest just do a search, obviously typing in the search, the words in your target language, and find YouTube channels that you're interested in that can help you to practice your listening. And if you feel like you're not ready yet, you can also just check out some of the beginner, elementary, um, listening practice that's on YouTube. There's also stuff that's more geared towards the testing side of things, like B2 audio content or C1 audio content. But really, the possibilities are endless. And I would actually suggest try to listen to audio content more than once if you can. If you have a 10-minute video that you're listening to, give it a second listen or a third listen, because what you'll find is that when you listen a second time or a third time, your comprehension will improve. It'll kind of help you to improve your listening. So I know that might not be fun for some people, but it really can help. And that really is true for any of the audio resources in this video, whether it's audiobooks or whatever. But I do think that repeat listens are a little bit easier with YouTube because they tend to be of a little bit shorter format. And a channel that I would definitely recommend if you feel like you're not um, super skilled or you're looking for something a little bit easier is the Easy Language YouTube channels. And so I could do like a quick search right here. And here's the Easy Spanish YouTube channel. And there's Easy French, there's Easy German, there's Easy a bunch of languages out there. And what's great is that the content, in my opinion, tends to be a little bit more geared towards beginners. They have subtitles in both English and in the language that you're learning underneath the video as they're talking. And that can be very helpful, I think, for a lot of people, especially kind of more at the beginner stage. And one thing, too, that I think is worth pointing out with audio content is that it's good to listen to audio content. Or different audio content. So like it's good to listen to conversations between different people. It's good to listen to an audiobook because um, the audio content is different, right? One is kind of giving you a speech almost, like they're reading a history about something in terms of like an audiobook versus like if it's a podcast, it might be two people talking to one another. So, the audio content that you consume can be very different, right? Whether it's conversation between people, it's a narration or whatever it is. So, with YouTube, you can find all of that, right? You can find conversations between people. You can find people just kind of narrating to the screen. So, definitely if you aren't already using it, use YouTube as an audio resource for your language learning. It really can be big in the end of the day. So next up, I wanted to talk about Yabla, and Yabla is a great resource for listening as well. It's something that I've used in the past, and basically, Yabla has a bunch of audio content, but underneath that audio content is subtitles in the language or in your target language. And I believe it also comes with a dictionary, so it kind of gives you this very guided kind of audio experience in terms of practicing your listening skills. And it's not free. It does require a monthly subscription. And here are the languages that are available on Yabla. But it can be a good source, especially if you just feel like you're really struggling with audio content, to kind of get a little bit of help along the way, whether it's just the subtitles or the dictionary or whatever it is. So, if you're struggling with audio content and you have money to spare, Yabla might be a good option. So definitely check that out. So next up, we have Netflix, and Netflix is a great resource for learning languages in terms of audio content. And it doesn't have to be Netflix; it could be any of the streaming services out there. Now, I don't watch a lot of streaming content, so I can't speak for the language options that are available at some of these other services, but I can speak about Netflix. And Netflix has a lot of content for just about everybody, and the thing about it is that the range of difficulty of content can be quite wide. One show might be very difficult for you, but then another show might be just right. So I think the key is to be very experimental, to try out different things, and to see what works best for you. If a show's not interesting or it's too hard, try out a different show. Or if it's still difficult, try putting on subtitles or closed captioning if it's available. that can really make all the difference. And I have a video on the subject of using Netflix for language learning. I'll link it in the description below. But while Netflix is not free, or the other streaming services aren't free, it is a great source for compelling language learning content out there. And if you're kind of trying to find specific shows in the language that you're learning, um, the Netflix original series tend to have a lot more language options compared to some of the older stuff, older movies, older TV shows, which in a lot of cases tend to be limited in terms of their language options. So, if you're still struggling to find um, kind of content in the language that you're learning, you can switch it or use Netflix original series. And they tend to have, I think, a lot more language options than some content out there. So, in terms of, compelling audio content, Netflix or really any other streaming service with language options is a good choice. So definitely consider that in terms of your audio practice for learning a language. So I also wanted to talk about podcast as a resource, and Apple Podcast is a great place for finding compelling and interesting audio content for your language learning. And as you can see here, there's just really so many subject matters that you can browse in your target language. And it doesn't have to be Apple Podcasts. It could be any really website that offers podcasts in the language that you're learning. I would just suggest, check out some podcasts because it's a little bit different than maybe watching a Netflix show or watching a YouTube video. It's something you can kind of do a little bit easier on the go. So, use podcasts when you're practicing listening, when you're learning a language. It can be really big in the end of the day. Next up, I wanted to talk about Google Translate, and I think it's worthwhile to kind of try to think about language learning from an experimental perspective. Always be trying out different methods and different ways to approach things, even if it's a little bit unconventional. And while Google Translate is probably not the most optimal method for audio content out there, what you can do is put some of the reading content that you find online into Google Translate and then listen to it in terms of the kind of audio playback that's available on the site. And so while the quality is not going to necessarily be the best, it can be a good way to kind of get an audio version of the text that you're reading, or just practice audio content in general. And so, like I said, while it might not be the most kind of conventional of methods, and there's probably better ways to find, there's better content out there that's more authentic or higher quality, don't overlook, just trying out different things like Google Translate and its audio feature when you're learning a language. I think that's a big thing in language learning is just try out different things, try out different methods. And so, give Google Translate a try with its audio feature. So last but not least, I wanted to talk about Steam, and I couldn't resist because I love video games. And video games are a great way to learn a language, especially from an audio perspective, but also a reading perspective as well. And I wanted to point it out because I think sometimes people forget that they can use things that they enjoy when they're learning a language. And video games are a great example of this. I mean, on Steam alone, there are so many video games that you can play, and there's a lot of different language options for many of these games, and you can change the game's language options to be the language that you're learning, and thus get language learning practice in while you're playing the video game. And there's other video game platforms out there that you can use. I prefer Steam. So, if you're a big video game fan, consider using video games as a audio resource when you're learning a language. It can really be very fun and very beneficial in your overall process. And that's just a few audio resources that you can use when you're learning a language. And obviously, there's a lot more resources than the ones listed in this video. If there's a resource that you like, please leave a comment below so everyone can benefit. And I just wanted to kind of point out that it really is important to practice listening when you're learning a language. I think it's very neglected by a lot of people, and it's really easy to do. And there's so many resources out there for compelling and interesting content. So, try to listen as much as you can, experiment, try out different resources, and really just try to put more effort into it because I think it's really important and it will help you to enjoy the language a lot more and enjoy compelling content. So that's what I had to say. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.